You want to be a star. You want the spotlight, the applause, the fine costumes with bells that announce your presence like an invoice. Perfect. Welcome to the job where you're paid to say what nobody dares and punished for saying exactly that. The Royal Court Jester, Head of Humor Resources. Your mission is to manage morale by bullying despair into laughter before despair files a coup. The interview is simple. Tell a joke in front of a person who can have you removed from the narrative. If the monarch laughs, you're hired. If not, the trapdoor is a surprisingly efficient feedback form. Congratulations! Your uniform is a patchwork of colors bright enough to be seen from space and shoes that curl like question marks, because every sentence you speak is one. Your office is the throne room, also known as the world's most dangerous open-plan workplace. The courtiers line the walls like expensive dominoes. None of them are permitted to disagree with the king, which makes you the only person whose job is audible dissent. You are the pressure valve. The crown uses you to say the thing the crown can't say, then looks shocked at your audacity. Everyone laughs, ritual achieved, policy continues, and somewhere a minister recalculates your life expectancy. People think the jester's tools are jokes and juggling. Correct, but incomplete. Your real toolkit, timing, treason law, and cardio. You must read a room the way a falcon reads wind. Is the queen chilly today? Avoid marriage humor. Has the tax collector arrived with a smile? Avoid tax humor unless the gallows crew is off-site. Did the general limp in? Absolutely avoid leg day. You are not here to be funny. You are here to be accurate with jokes, which is a sniper's job wearing bells. Payment? In theory, generous. Stipends, wine, a tiny apartment whose walls have heard history mutter to itself. In reality, your wages fluctuate with the king's mood and the treasury's belief in laughter as infrastructure. On good days, you're tipped with a ring, which you trade for bread, because comedy is digestible, but not edible. On bad days, your pay is continued presence. All the while you memorize everyone's secrets, because gossip is your weather report. You must know who's feuding, who's fasting, who's reading scriptures at unusual hours with the ambassador's spouse. This is not nosiness, it's risk mitigation. A joke about the chancellor's healthy appetite is charming, unless the queen is trying not to cry that very same appetite. Precision keeps you employed, alive, and, on rare occasions, beloved. Your career ladder is unusual. There are 2 promotions, trusted confidant or historical footnote with a cautionary tone. The confidant route happens when you become the only creature who can tell the monarch a hard truth without using a sword. You learn to wrap honesty in balloon animals. Your Majesty, shall we conquer this small coastal rock? Splendid idea, if we're building a rock collection instead of an empire. The footnote route is faster. It begins with, surely His Majesty will appreciate this clever rhyme, includes a pun about taxation, and ends with an abrupt change in employment status called silence. Rehearsal. You rehearse for an audience of 1, the mirror. You practice faces that say, disrespectful but adorable. You practice falling down without breaking the only bones you use for rent. Slapstick is safer than satire until the day your kneecap resigns. You train your bells to jingle at the end of punchlines like punctuation for people with money. Every day is a test. Consider a random Tuesday. The court is sulking because diplomacy has gone the way of last year's fashion, i.e., into a trunk labeled, "We'll deny this later." The king sits like a thundercloud with jewelry. You wheel in a prop, a giant onion. You announce, "Behold, the onion of state. Each layer we peel reveals another reason we cry." The chamber titters. The chancellor snorts. The king's mouth twitches, which is a royal earthquake. Encouraged, you peel a layer that reads, "Military budget," then another labeled, "Bribes," and finally one that says, "Cousin appointments." Dangerous. You juggle the layers so fast the words blur into bureaucracy. The king laughs out loud. You live for the onion's length, which is to say you've leased tomorrow. But satire is a jealous god. Tell a perfect joke once and it demands a sacrifice the next day. You cannot repeat material. Memory is the one luxury a court has in bulk. So, you innovate. You invent characters. The peasant who speaks in receipts. The general who tactically retreats from responsibility. The noble who loves the poor, the way a falcon loves a rabbit. You sing tiny songs with choruses that sound like praise, until the third verse explains the bill. You mimic ambassadors, then apologize with a bow so low the floor compliments your humility. Half the job is comedy. The other half is surviving comedy. Sometimes the kingdom goes to war. You do not fight. You travel with the court and keep the tents from quitting. Soldiers adore you because laughter is the only armor that fits everyone. You perform on crates, on walls, on a barrel that used to store a different kind of courage. You teach call and response chants whose responses are unprintable and morale-shaped. The general thanks you with a nod that means you are cheaper than a second catapult. In return, you write him a rhyme about logistics that convinces him to count the food this time. There are darker days. A plague visits. You are suddenly a medical professional in the field of spirits. You tell jokes outside shuttered houses because inside them people remember how lungs work. You get heckled by fate and tip it your best hat. The bells sound indecently cheerful. A priest frowns at you until you whisper a joke only God would find funny. The priest laughs, then pretends he didn't. You perform for the gravediggers at dusk, and they repay you with gossip that will one day save your neck. Ah yes, the neck. You think about it more than average. You keep a mental list titled Absolutely Never. Never joke about the monarch's bloodline unless you're prepared to stop having one. Never mock the queen's piety, the crown prince's poetry, or the cavalry's ability to find the battlefield. Never make puns about inheritance during flu season. Never do impressions of the hangman. He does his own bookings. You also maintain a companion list. Sometimes, if the moon is right, the price of bread, the price of glory, the price of pretending those are different. One evening changes your trajectory. The council has argued for hours about whether to raise taxes temporarily, a word meaning until we forget it's temporary. The room is brittle. You step forward carrying two scales. One holds a loaf of bread, the other a gold coin stamped with the king's profile. Your Majesty, you say cheerfully, I've solved the problem. If we bake the coin into the bread, the people will eat their money and finally feel full. The courtiers stare like cats hearing the doorbell. The king does not smile. The king says, explain. You inhale the kind of breath that becomes legend or epitaph. If we tax until the loaf is air, the people will eat their rage. It digests poorly. A silence expands to cathedral size. Then the queen laughs. Not a giggle, but the careful laughter of someone nudging the future with a fan. The king's mouth twists into reluctant amusement. Very well, he says. We will thin the tax. The chancellor glares as if you've personally mugged his arithmetic. You bow. Your bells behave like loyal witnesses. That night a servant leaves warm bread outside your door. You eat it carefully, as if it might be gratitude. Occasionally you advise privately. These are the moments that justify bells as a profession. In the royal gardens, the king walks with the weight of a nation and you with the weight of a punchline. He asks, do they love me? You answer, some do, some must, and some will when bread is cheaper. He chuckles, then stares at the fountain as if water contains opinion. And you? He asks. You grin. I am paid to love the truth and rented to tell it. He promotes you to confident, which means the jokes get sharper and the nights longer. Do you retire? Not really. A jester doesn't retire. He either becomes legend or becomes quiet. If you're lucky, a younger fool arrives, terrified, talented, and you teach them the 3 great rules. Punch up, gravity will handle the rest. Make them laugh before you make them think. Exit on the laugh, not on the thought. The thought will follow you home. In the end, your legacy won't be statues. It'll be air. Rooms that became lighter, councils that became less foolish. A king who once changed his mind because a man in bells made the truth sound survivable. The chronicles will file you under curiosities, but the people will remember the day the taxes got thinner and the bread didn't. So, was the job worth it? If you require safety, no. If you require applause, sometimes. If you require the dangerous luxury of telling the truth out loud and living to hear it echo, then yes. Pin on the bells. Warm up your knees. Learn the shape of a room's fear and teach it how to laugh without breaking. Welcome to Humor Resources, where the benefits are intangible and the risk is exquisitely tangible. Now step out, bow deep, and smile like a man whose joke is already halfway to mercy.